Today, we're tackling a question that feels like a real paradox. In family court, the law is supposed to be totally gender neutral when it comes to child custody. But for decades, the outcomes have consistently, and I mean consistently, favored one gender. So we gotta ask,
why do mothers win custody so much more often than fathers? This isn't just some interesting statistic. For so many parents, it's a deeply personal and often really painful reality. It's this huge conflict between what the system says it does and what it actually does.
And this quote from a dad who's facing a custody battle, wow, it just makes it all so real, doesn't it? This isn't some abstract legal debate. It's a genuine fear that can feel completely overwhelming. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack this whole thing. But here's the twist. The answer isn't where you'd expect to find it at all.
all right, so here's our game plan. We're gonna start with this question of fairness. The system on paper. Then, we're gonna follow a really unlikely clue that takes us from the courtroom into the world of scientific research. From there, we'll explore this wild idea called citation contamination and see how it's a powerful metaphor for stereotypes. Then, we'll zoom out and see how this problem goes way beyond the courtroom and into our daily lives, before, finally, we talk about what it means to read the full story.
Okay, first up, the system as it's written down. Officially, family courts are guided by one single, core principle when they're deciding who a child should live with.
It's called the best interest of the child standard. And it's meant to be pretty broad, so that judges can consider, well, everything. The parent's ability to care for the kid, the child's relationship with each parent, their home, you name it. The most important part? The gender of the parent is not supposed to be a factor. It's all about the child.
And yet, when you look at the actual data from the US Census Bureau, a very, very clear pattern pops up year after year. So if the standard is neutral, why are the results so lopsided? Well, the answer isn't in the law books. To really get what's going on, we have to look somewhere completely different.
So where do you even start to look for an answer to a legal puzzle like this? Well, sometimes the best clues are hiding in the most unexpected places.
Yup, you heard that right. We are leaving the law library and we're heading straight into the science lab. Because the subtle, often unconscious mistake that a scientist makes when they cite a source, well, it's remarkably similar to the mistake that can happen when a judge makes a custody decision. It all comes down to a very dangerous shortcut.
Now here is where things get really fascinating. According to research published by the National Institutes of Health, some studies estimate that a staggering 80% of scientists have cited a paper without actually reading the whole thing. Think about that. They read the summary, but they miss all the details. And that one statistic, that is the key to this entire mystery.
This brings us to a phenomenon we can call citation contamination. It's basically how bad information can spread like a virus through the very system that's designed to find the truth.
So a citation error happens when a researcher misrepresents what another study actually found. And what's the most common reason for this? You guessed it. They didn't read the full paper. They took a shortcut. I mean, a research paper has a ton of parts. The intro, the methods, the data, the discussion, the conclusion. But right at the very top, there's the abstract. It's like the quick summary, the TLDR. Scientists are busy people, so a lot of the time they just read that abstract, grab the conclusion, and cite it. But when they do that, they miss all the crucial context, the limitations, the nuance that's buried deep in the full text. And that's how small misunderstandings can blow up and become accepted facts.
So how in the world does this relate to family court? Well, this is where our two worlds, the science lab and the courtroom, finally collide. The mental shortcut a scientist takes when citing a paper is almost identical to the shortcut a judge might take when facing a really tough custody decision.
Here it is. This is the core idea of this whole explainer. In science, the error is relying on an abstract instead of reading the full paper. In law, the error is relying on a stereotype instead of engaging with the full person. Both are shortcuts. Both substitute a simplistic summary for a complex reality. A stereotype, when you think about it, is just an abstract of a person.
And the parallels here are just startling. A selective citation in science? In court, that's just confirmation bias, favoring information that confirms what you already believe, like the cultural assumption that mothers are just naturally more nurturing. Unjustified extrapolation, that's like applying a broad stereotype, say that fathers are mainly providers, to a specific hands-on dad who's actually the primary caregiver. Citing a secondary source is like relying on cultural hearsay about parenting instead of looking at the direct evidence of that specific family's life. It is the exact same pattern of flawed thinking, just in a totally different setting.
Now, this habit of taking mental shortcuts, it isn't limited to scientists or judges. Oh no, it is something we all do, every single day, in the way we consume information.
I mean, take this comment from a Reddit discussion about academic sources. It points out that a site like ResearchGate, which looks super official, has zero real quality control. It's a perfect example of a source that gives you a convenient summary, an abstract, without any of the rigorous backing of actual peer review.
So what are the unreliable, summary-level sources in your life? Is it a certain news aggregator, a political commentator you follow, maybe a specific social media account? We all have them, sources we trust for a quick take without ever bothering to check the original story. It's a daily habit for most of us. Every single time you share an article after only reading the headline, you're citing without reading. Every time you accept a meme's claim as fact, you're relying on an abstract. This isn't just some academic problem. It's a fundamental feature of how we live our lives online today.
So, what's the solution? How do we fight against this impulse to take the easy shortcut, whether we're in a custody case or just scrolling through our social media feeds?
Well, that NIH paper on citation errors actually gives us a great roadmap. It turns out that the best practices for science are also the best practices for life. First, find the original source. In court, that means looking past the stereotype to the actual parents. In life, it means clicking the link. Second, engage with the details. Understand the whole context, not just the easy answer. And finally, question the conclusions. Don't just accept someone else's interpretation, whether it's a scientist's or a stereotype's. Look at the facts and decide for yourself.
This is the discipline of critical thinking. And yeah, it takes more work than just accepting a shortcut, whether it's a stereotype in a courtroom or a headline on your phone. It requires us to slow down, to engage, and to embrace complexity. And it leaves us with one really crucial question. What essential truth are we missing when we're content with only reading the summary?